No matter how long you've been a vault man, there are days where all of our experience is needed to make sure a service goes properly. As a cemetery changes sextons, changes gravediggers, changes management in general, a lot of times the plots are not laid out perfectly straight or to the right width. So I took a little extra time today to make sure that we weren't going to run into any major issues when it was time to place the burial vault in the plot. The vault I'll be installing today is the Trigard Aegean, and as I normally do, I will place a cross in the bottom of the grave to assist with removing my cables once the vault has been lowered down. After always checking the obituary to make sure that the person was of a Christian faith, I wouldn't place a cross in someone's grave if they were not religious in that way. Now let's take a look and see if this vault is going to fit or not. And when I say it was snug, there was no room to spare. So this is why it's important to pay attention when you're a vault man. You know, a lot of times the plots are anywhere from 40 inches to 5 feet. And when you have one vault being placed and it's at an angle to the north, and you have another vault being placed in the plot adjacent being angled towards the south, we end up with 34.5 inches in between this graveliner and this Wilbert Monticello. Now, one thing I can tell that's hard to show when I first seal a vault is part of the sealing process occurs when the grave is being backfilled. Now, these vaults have a butyl adhesive seal in the groove of the lid, and when the base is raised up into the lid, the interior liner on the base goes into the seal of the groove of the lid, displacing the seal around the lip of the base. Now, once you add that backfilled dirt, you get a lot more pressure on the lid, which presses down on that seal, expanding it even farther. So today's conundrum, making sure we can fit a 34-inch wide vault in a 34.5-inch grave in between these two stones. With that being said, as a precaution, I think what I'm going to do today is set up my aluminum boards on my platform as I normally would, set my vault down on some aluminum boards right over the grave, and then go ahead and use the winch on the buggy to go ahead and lower the vault base all the way into the grave. Now, my harness adds an extra 1/2 inch on each side of the vault, so my vault in turn is going to be 35 inches wide. Now, if I see that the base clears and will end up clearing all the way down, I'll go ahead and swing the burial vault, because using my cables from each end, I won't have that excess width on the sides. So, on a day like today, we really do what we can do, and if all else fails and this vault does not fit, we'll have to disinter one of these burial vaults or this grave liner and slide it over into its position where it should go. Now, I'm crossing my fingers that that doesn't happen and that this service can go on as it should. So let's get to work. And before I arrived here today, the gravedigger did do a really good job making sure he excavated as much as he could around that grave liner and around that burial vault, and also sending us measurements to make sure that we would have the right size vault for the grave in question. Now, luckily, this Trigard vault was the exact width as it's supposed to be, and it did fit nice and snug. Throughout the rest of this video, I will stop a few times and mention a few things, speaking about pre-installed grave liners, pre-installed burial vaults, and other topics of conversation, including the way that we use our lowering device and so on. So stay tuned for some more information. Take care, and God bless.
So this right here is a perfect example as to why I do not put the base in the grave and keep the lid off to the side. Now I only set this down with the lid on it on boards for 2 minutes earlier to make sure this vault would fit into the grave in between two other vaults. Just by setting it down at the bottom, there's dirt from rubbing on the sides all over where the seal is going to be placed. That's the primary reason why we don't set the base in the grave, to make sure that the seal is installed properly above ground with nothing in the way, and also why we don't mess with pre-installed burial vaults in any way, shape, or form. There's a lot of virality with pre-installed burial vaults having the cover pulled off before a service. Gravediggers digging up the soil above the lid is pulled off and it's chock full of water all the way to the top sometimes. Now that being said, those burial vaults are not installed with a seal. It's just concrete on concrete, metal on metal, fiberglass on fiberglass. There's no seal there. Water can run right in. This butyl adhesive seal, when it makes contact with the ridge on the base, it expands and covers to make sure this is air and water tight. If there's debris, dirt, grease, anything bad on the seal, you have to clean that off or it's not going to seal properly. Those videos are not videos of burial vaults that were installed correctly. They were installed as a pre-install, which means you can't seal the lid on or you'll never get it off without breaking the burial vault. So before we continue today, I'm going to make sure this liner is nice and clean and nothing is going to impede the seal once I seal this burial vault here in about 2 hours. And that right there is a good reason to have safety bars. Apparently when I put my T-carpet in, I hit my lock. And as you can see, the pistol's just slowly lowered. If I didn't have my safety bars here, and the casket would have been placed on the lowering device already, that casket would have just slowly lowered down into the vault. That's not at all what you want to happen during a service. That's why we set them on safety bars. And if I didn't do my job correctly and the lowering device is askew ever so slightly, the casket may catch on the edge of the burial vault and flip over. So that's another reason why we like using safety bars. you.